Mark, it is so great to talk to you. I've been a fan for 30 years. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on the ride home on 1039 The Maverick, first off.
Oh, thank you, man. Good talking to you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think Legend Valley was the last time that we chatted, and there's so much water under the bridge since then. But before we start talking about the current tour, what you've named it, why you've named it that, how are you feeling, man? Let's chronicle what's happened to you in the last year and a half.
Well, I'll tell you, it goes back further than that. I would say from 21 all the way through 23, it was a rough few years, man, with COVID and all that mess going on. And then my back went down on me and I had to get a back surgery, very serious back surgery. And that, I'll tell you what, that knocked me down worse than the heart surgery, last year. But anyway, I never got over the back surgery. That thing crippled me so bad for several years. And then the COVID stuff happening at the same time. And
Well, you'd had a bad back going way back to early in life, didn't you?
yeah, man, I was born with something called Pars defect in 63. And, they didn't know how to treat that stuff back then. And that's a fractured spine in my lower back. They said over time it would heal, but it would take a while. And I didn't know anything about that. Nobody ever mentioned that to me. My parents never said anything to me about that. And so, but over the years, it filled in with cartilage and all that. But I had a weak back because of that. And I didn't know that. I had some heavy lifting job plus playing music since I was a teenager. I was always hauling heavy gear. So I didn't know. It just normal life and all that just wore my back out and made it very weak. And over the years, it slowly became 3 fractures.
It gave out, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it gave out. I was running around with a broken back, literally, for a lot of years. And it just got to the point where I couldn't go anymore. I was taking injections for several years, every 3 months, just to fight the pain. But eventually it wore out like they said it would. And I had to stop and do the surgery. And then, sitting around the house all the time because of COVID and couldn't do my physical therapy for 6 months. So I couldn't do nothing but sit around the house and drink. So that's what I did. I mean, I couldn't work, I couldn't walk, I couldn't drive, couldn't do anything, but I could sure as hell sitting around and drink.
So one problem led to another then, right?
Oh yeah, I always liked to drink, but it was never a big problem until that point, and then it turned into a major problem and started affecting my whole life, and went back to work and everything was fine, but I was still hitting the ball a little too hard, and I had eventually ended up in the hospital because of that. Nearly died over that.
Wow.
But I got straightened all out. I didn't go to rehab or none of that stuff. The doctors just told me, you either quit drinking or you're going to die. And so
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
yeah. So, but I had help. The doctors gave me medication to help me to get off the alcohol and to kept the withdrawals away, and got healed. It took me a long time, but I got well and went back to work, and everything's great. And then I had to have quadruple bypass.
That's what I thought was going to be the big topic of health discussion. I mean, that is no small potatoes there.
No, so I was doing great. I moved from Tennessee back to Texas. We moved to Tennessee for a couple of years and got sobered up in Tennessee and came home and was happy and thrilled to death again to be back in Texas. Just back on the road, working a lot and doing great, feeling great. And then my heart started giving me trouble, and that shut me down again for a while. But that's all good. The heart surgery actually wasn't that bad to get over. It wasn't nearly as hard as the back surgery. I'm doing great now.
That's fantastic. We're talking to one of the best country music voices, in my opinion, of all time, not just the 90s. Mark Chestnut's always been one of my favorites here on the ride home on 1039 The Maverick. So let's talk now about your music and your tour. And for you, setting foot on stage now on a tour you've called your Redemption Tour, when you came so close to losing everything, much less your life, this has got to feel like a second beginning for you, Mark.
It is. It really is. I had a lot of great years in the 90s and all through the 2000s. Country music changed so much, and my type of music started getting, kind of scarce.
Sadly, you are
Everything
correct.
changed. Yeah, that's how it always happens, though. It's nothing new. It's always happening, and it's happening again. And country music is making a comeback. My kind of country music, the kind of stuff
Yes.
we did in the '90s, which basically reflected back on the '70s country music, '70s and '80s country music, when all the heroes were still around, like Merle and George and Waylon. We always had George Strait keeping it going, but things have a tendency to get a little squirrely in Nashville, and
Thanks to Music Row record executives, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that and just trying to please too many people and kind of forgetting about the core audience and going from doing really country music. That's what always got me when I got to Nashville, on the strength of a song that I had found in Nashville in the '80s and recorded it down in Texas. Was Too Cold at Home and Old Country. Both of those songs are written by Bobby Harden, that I found in Nashville when I was making regular trips up there, just trying to make it in business. And so it's weird that they came to Texas and signed me because I had recorded those songs down here in Houston. And they got a lot of notice on country radio around Southeast Texas, around Houston. And so I got a record deal because of that song, Too Cold.
It's still one of the greatest country songs of all time.
Sure is. It's one of the very best, and I was very lucky to get that song. Nobody was recording that song.
Hard to believe.
Because it was written in the '70s, and Bobby Harden told me he pitched it to everybody, including George Jones, Merle Haggard, all of them, and they turned it down because it didn't have a bridge. But I loved it, and thank God nobody recorded it. But it brought, it was one of the songs at the time that was recorded in 1990 when I recorded that song.
I remember.
Country music was getting hot again. We had, Randy Travis and Keith Whitley and all of them come along in the late '80s, and things were happening again. And I got in on that, and wouldn't you know, about 5 years into it, it all went weird again.
Mark, how does it make you feel? Somebody with what I call an iconic honky-tonk sound, the kind of country music you expect to hear when you go to a country bar, a country concert. How does it make you feel to turn on some what we call contemporary country stations today and hear what you're hearing with a lot of, not all of it, there's some that's very good, but some of it is like, what in the hell?
That's what I think. I said, what in the hell is this? How did we go from Too Cold at Home and Bubba Shot the Jukebox to songs that I don't even know what they're about anymore? A lot of the songs are about just getting drunk and partying and don't make they're not saying anything. They don't have any substance. And so, like I said, now what was happening the last 20 years, that was happening also in the mid '90s. It went like that again because of a few artists that hit it huge playing anything other than country. So we all had to do that. But things have changed now. I see things happening here in the last few years. Some country music artists, some really good ones are coming out now, like Zach Top. I think he's the top of the line.
Well, he's new, but he sounds old.
He sounds like we did in the '90s.
Yes.
It's that same kind of music.
Right.
He's bringing that back. That makes me feel so good because it makes me think, wow, I guess what I did and Tracy Lawrence and Joe Diffie did, maybe that was important, more important than I thought it was, because these young kids were listening to that. My son Casey Chestnut is coming out with a brand new single, his first single on his new label. He's got a new single coming out June 6th. His first single called Uninvited Guest is coming out, and it sounds just like I would have cut this song in the '90s.
Does he sound like his old man?
Quite a bit, yeah, quite a bit, but he's got his own thing.
Mark Chestnut's our guest here on 103.9 The Maverick. We are a classic country station, Mark. We play a lot of your music, and people your age and my age, I got a couple more trips around the sun than you do. We love it because I think the 90s was the best decade of country music. But like your son, I hear and see a lot of young people getting out of pickups and some cars, and they've got on Mark Chestnut and Joe Diffie.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's the best thing. I'm just thrilled that I lived long enough, that I survived the last few years long enough to see this resurgence again. And it's going to come back big. I guarantee you, my son's single is going to take off, and he's going to make a lot of noise. And I'm just glad that I was here, that I survived it to be a part of it.
Well,
I'm just as busy as I ever has been. I'm out there working just as much.
Well, you've got a 30 plus, almost 36 date tour. Of course, you're playing playing live at the Bluestone tonight, a venue you're going to love, great acoustics, an old century-old church, and I know you're going to love it. But talk about the show tonight. What are people going to hear?
First of all, I got it. So we're going to be playing a honky-tonk show in a church.
That's right. A former church.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, we're going to be doing all those songs that people come to hear. You know, they're not coming to hear me play anything new. I know now I've become comfortable with the fact that everybody is expecting to hear what they've been hearing for the last 35 years.
Right.
Even the people that are just now figuring out who I was, you know, in the 90s. I talk to people all the time, young people that say, hey, man, I just got turned on to your music. And now I have everything you've ever recorded, because they can do that now.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the greatest thing that ever happened to old guys like me. You know, people are listening to our stuff that we recorded before they were born, and they're liking it. And so they're coming out to the shows along with people that's been coming to my shows for 30 plus years, you know, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing Bubba Shot the Jukebox, Too Cold at Home, Brother Jukebox, Old Country, all that stuff. I just love the fact that I can go on stage and sing nothing but my songs that people still want to hear.
Darn right. Matter of fact, they'd be pissed if you tried to play something new, I think, don't you?
I think so, yeah. I've been sitting around thinking, you know, because I guess the artist in me wants to record brand new stuff and come out with some fresh songs. But, you know, I could do that. But I learned back in 16 when I came out with Tradition Lives, the last album I did, you know, full album with all brand new songs. You know, people liked it. Radio played it a little bit. But I would say, hey, here's my new single. And I'd kick it off. And, you know, a lot of people would either get up and go to the bathroom or go get a beer or start talking. And so I realized, well, even though they're great songs, they'd rather hear the old stuff that they're familiar with. And I'm happy to do that. I'm really thrilled every night to sing those songs. They still sound new to me.
Talking to Mark Chestnut here on 103.9 The Maverick and the Ride Home podcast. Mark, I got to ask you, though, when somebody like yourself has had so many hits, all the number ones, all the top tens, almost 35 between the two, 14 number ones, is there a song that still just gets you fired up to perform live? What's your favorite Mark Chestnut song to perform?
Well, now see, there you go. I get that question so much, and I can't answer that, because every one of them I look forward to playing next. You know, I look at the set list and I think, oh, cool, this one's coming up next. You know, and I still love singing it because I like to see the reaction. I like to hear the people singing along with me and smiles on their faces, and they'll get excited because I'm playing Bubba Shot the Jukebox.
Right.
And I'll think of something, though, is probably my favorite song that I've recorded.
I couldn't agree more. That's one, when I play it, it's like you forget how damn good that song was, and still is.
Yeah, those songs that were written way back then, there's a lot of them are still timeless. You know, there's a few of them that were really not quite my style, something that I wasn't really crazy about.
For example?
But being in the music business, you have to, you know, back in those days, we were on major labels. We had MCA, RCA, Sony, all those big labels, and you had to play the game and play was hot at the time on radio. You know, the kind of song, the style of songs that were making money and getting all the airplay at the time. One of them is, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but like Almost Goodbye wasn't a song that I would have picked to record.
God, I love that song.
It wasn't country enough for me. I felt like it was a little too middle of the road, but you know, now it is country. You know, I love the song now.
Yeah, and moreover, that song, almost more than any other Mark Chestnut song, made you feel. That song brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, it does now. You know, at first I thought, man, I don't really want to cut this kind of song. But when I did it, I fell in love with it when I was recording it. And I'm glad I did. A lot of songs like that. And Your Love Is a Miracle was one that I didn't really care about. It was on my first album. I needed a song like that to come out with. And it went to number 1, too. So now I have to sing it every night. But now I like it. I like singing because everybody sings right along with it.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for for all the time you've given us here. I know a lot of people are going to go to the Ride Home podcast and listen for the entire interview. I can't play 20 minutes straight on the radio, but they can get it here online. And dude, I just want to reiterate how many old farts like me, and for that matter like you, still love and look forward to playing your music. Thanks again, brother.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you still playing this stuff, and we'll see y'all there.